Being constantly around those who cause you pain must be unbearable. Let me share my story with you, though it's nothing compared to the injustice you've faced. I hope you can find the will to live through it. In my youth, I loved embroidery, but those around me didn't understand saying men shouldn't embroider. My parents wanted me to become a knight and earn a title, but I didn't want that, so I became more devoted to embroidery. One day, I lost something very precious. So I embroidered it, then burned it like a funeral rite, and a miracle happened. The burned embroidery guided me to the lost item. Afterward, I used this ability like a hero, helping police catch criminals and helping others find lost pets and children. The feeling of going from being ignored and mocked to being praised and envied was intoxicating until one day my eyesight began to deteriorate and I could no longer create satisfying embroidery. Doctors said I had the art disease and would go permanently blind if I continued. I was truly desperate, then even contemplating death in the end. Like you, I set off on a journey, but during my travels I found a new dream, so I gave up embroidery and became a doctor. I don't want art disease to be called an incurable disease, so I won't easily give up on you. So Karina, don't give up so readily. There are still many worthwhile things in this world. Tell me more. Why did you only seek medical help when your condition was so severe? Didn't your family Dr. Norton notice? Doctor asked. As the family doctor, he couldn't treat everyone in the household equally. Karina relied with sad expression. Oblivious to them, Norton not only looked after Karina's health, but when he learned that Karina had the art disease and was dying, he chose to conceal it, even hoping Karina would quietly die elsewhere. Karina had once harbored special feelings for Norton. She was only 18 when she met the family Dr. Norton in the courtyard. During his first visit, Norton greeted Karina first. Being their first meeting, he smiled politely. Their conversation was pleasant, making Karina, who had never been valued, feel special. Karina began subconsciously looking forward to his visits, and Norton would greet her with a big smile. This made the neglected Karina feel another person's warmth and hopelessly fell for his kindness. One day Karina encountered Norton again. She eagerly approached, wanting to talk with him, but despite having countless things to say, her words became mere casual greetings. "Norton, what are you doing here?" Norton shyly mentioned he wanted to pick a flower for someone, hoping she would like it. Hearing this, Karina's heart pounded wildly, ready to accept Norton's gesture, but with her sister Abelia's appearance, Karina's expectations instantly vanished. He gave the flower to Abelia. Her so-called love had been entirely her imagination. Though somewhat disappointed, Karina, accustomed to loneliness, quickly recovered. At least he was nice to her. But that delusion was also broken soon. One day, as usual, Karina was helping her sister, who wasn't allowed to go out, select books in the library. Her sister constantly complained about Norton, grumbling about his attitude, how he forbade her from doing various things, but Karina found her sister's complaints heart-wrenching. What her sister complained about was exactly what she longed for but couldn't have. Just as she was lost in thought, her sister bumped into the bookshelf. It instantly lost balance, crashing down towards Karina. Norton, hearing the commotion outside, rushed in, calling Abelia's name. Seeing injured Karina trapped under the bookshelf and crying Alia nearby, his first reaction was to comfort the frightened Abelia. As a doctor, he completely ignored Karina trapped under the shelf. Instead, he turned to Karina and shouted angrily, "What were you thinking? Abelia isn't like you, she's very fragile. Fortunately, the cabinet fell toward you, but what if it had fallen toward Leah? Is this how you care for your sister? As the elder one, I think you want her dead." He left the library carrying the crying Abelia, leaving Karina trapped under the bookshelf. Yet Karina still naively believed he was just overly concerned about Abelia and acted hastily, but night fell and Norton never returned. Since then, Karina realized that Norton, like her parents, focused all his attention on Abelia. So even if I sought his diagnosis, he would conceal my condition out of concern for Abelia because he feared the news would hinder her treatment, Karina deduced. The doctor was furious after hearing this. He had often advised Norton to treat each patient equally, but that fellow hadn't listened at all. However, the doctor wasn't the only one angered. The Duke, eavesdropping outside, was equally furious. A few days later, despite knowing painting would consume what little life she had left, Karina used her art. Karina just wanted to help the Duke figure out the monster Hattie's weakness. She used her life as the price to draw the magical beast Hattie on paper. Now she just needed to color it, and the beast on paper would come alive, but halfway through coloring she embarrassingly realized she didn't have enough paint. She also felt a twinge of guilt, because the creatures she created through painting could share her thoughts. They had always accompanied her when she felt helpless and wronged, and now it felt like she was using her own creations, but she genuinely wanted to help the Duke. who had cared for her. As she hesitated, she glimpsed the gleaming necklace nearby. It was given to her by the Duke during their outing a few days ago. The Duke said it was a northern legend called heron, a rare item dropped from a slain magical beast. Legend had it that extremely frail people would become healthy wearing it. Karina held it. Feeling her breathing become smoother, she closed her eyes and made her decision. Since she was dying anyway, she would repay the Duke who had cared for her. Meanwhile, the Duke, practicing his sword skills under moonlight, was wondering why he didn't feel Karina's gaze today. When he learned Karina needed paint, he immediately arranged the most comfortable carriage and specially wore clothes matching Karina's to buy her some paint from the market. Karina felt awkward at the Duke's grand gesture. Though she had been in the north for some time, she still wasn't used to the Duke's attentiveness, but thinking about getting new painting supplies and this addictive feeling of being valued, she couldn't help but feel happy. Since the Duke had eavesdropped and learned of Karina's past experiences, his care for her had become even more meticulous. Hearing Karina needed paint for coloring, he immediately arranged the most luxurious carriage, wanting her to feel valuable. During the journey, he constantly reminded Karina to speak up if she felt any discomfort, not to conceal it out of fear of troubling him. He also told her about previously sending her paintings to the Carlos family. The Carlos family was the empire's recognized authority on art appreciation, and they were also knowledgeable about the art disease. Their patriarch Carlos is a good friend of mine, and he should be on his way to the north now. This might help treat your art disease. But Karina was startled by this news due to being ignored and dismissed since childhood. Even though her paintings had received Miran's appreciation, the insecurity formed since childhood wouldn't be overcome by one instance of recognition. Miran noticed Karina's inner worry, so he gently comforted her. Karina, you're excellent, and your paintings are wonderful. Since you've chosen to escape that suffocating family, you should now live for yourself. Don't let them influence you anymore, and you're no longer alone. Just as the Duke was about to continue, the clothing store owner, who came to welcome them, accidentally interrupted him. The Duke was very displeased, but out of consideration for Karina, he restrained his temper. He could only explain to Karina with frustration, "This is the best clothing store in the north. Before we buy paint, let's order some clothes suitable for the north and some work clothes for your painting." Karina hurriedly tried to refuse, but Miran wouldn't give her the chance. He waved his hand grandly, "Bring all the expensive clothes from your store." This frightened Karina, who quickly tugged at his arm to stop him. "Just a few will do, please don't spend so much." But Miran, noticing Karina's tight grip on his arm, seemed thoughtful. His mother once said, when a woman says no, it means yes. Karina is just being shy. So he gave Karina a look that said, "Don't worry, I understand." And added, "Feel free to choose whatever you want." Karina was bewildered. "Are you sure you really understand?" Karina could only reluctantly cooperate with him, allowing him to dress her up. And after quite some time, Karina finally had the chance to slump down on the sofa, while the shop owner smiled broadly, continuing to promote her wares to Karina. "We have some exotic style clothing over here, would you like to see them?" Karina quickly refused. She didn't want to suffer through that ordeal again, but the Duke thought Karina was feeling unwell, so he placed his hand on her forehead. Exhausted, Karina found this sudden cool touch quite comfortable, unconsciously nuzzling against it, but she immediately widened her eyes, explaining shyly, "I didn't mean to, it's just that your hand felt so cool, so she trailed. But the Duke wasn't concerned about that. He anxiously asked Karina, "Do you have a fever? You're so warm, should we head back?" Karina was confused by his inquiry, thinking suddenly placing a hand on a girl's head would make anyone feel warm, but Karina was too embarrassed to explain, especially after she had just nuzzled his hand, so she made an excuse about having too many clothes and not knowing what to choose. Miran understood and purchased everything. After leaving the clothing store, Karina was pouting while the Duke carefully tried to appease her. "I'd be happy to buy them all for you. Why are you still sulking?" Karina just felt she didn't need so many clothes. There was absolutely no need to buy everything, she complained, and it was also the first time she heard someone tell her they wanted to buy everything for her. The Duke explained, "It's nothing, just consider this as an apology gift for sending your painting to Duke Carlos without your permission." Karina could only sigh helplessly, "But I can't possibly wear all these clothes." Miran assured her, "We have plenty of time, you can wear them at your leisure. Now let's go purchase the paints you need." She never expected to receive the attention and care from her fiancé of a few months that she had never experienced from her own family. Just thinking about Myra's kindness made Karina's heart flutter. She carefully took Miran's large hand and said to him, "Let's go, we need to buy painting supplies." Upon reaching the art supply store, Karina excitedly widened her eyes, staring unblinkingly at the supplies inside, while the Duke was still recalling that lingering warmth from moments ago. The store owner, seeing their elegant attire, took them for aristocrats out for a curious adventure, so when Karina expressed her desire to purchase some art supplies, he impatiently informed the two that he didn't have any top-quality supplies suitable for nobility. This infuriated Miran, who was about to lose his temper, while Karina hurriedly tried to stop him. Suddenly, the store owner noticed Karina's hands. He abruptly approached Karina, stating that he wanted to take a look at her hands. The Duke became even more displeased, thinking, he's already trying to kick us out and now he wants to harass my fiancé. Does he think I won't get angry? But Karina casually extended her hand. After seeing the calluses on Karina's hand, the store owner apologized. I see you truly love painting. I thought you were just a wealthy young lady who paints as a pastime. To express my apologies, feel free to browse all the supplies here. I'll give you a discount. The owner apologized. Hearing this, Karina could no longer contain her excitement and began examining the items, leaving a resentful Duke standing there in bewilderment. After the Duke briefly calmed himself, he haughtily discussed ordering art supplies with the store owner because he wanted to create a dedicated studio for Karina. At the same time, the Duke curiously asked if the store owner was also proficient in painting. Otherwise, how could he tell Karina loved painting just from the calluses on her hands? Upon hearing this, the store owner frankly admitted, yes, I also love painting very much, but later I developed an art disease and both my hands began to stiffen. But since I moved to the north, my condition has gradually improved, so I settled in the north and opened an art supply store. Hearing this, the Duke was about to inquire about the recovery process when he was distracted by Karina suddenly vomiting blood and falling unconscious. In her hazy state, she felt as if she were floating. She was burning, unable to breathe. Just as she felt she was about to suffocate, a cool sensation on her forehead pulled her back to reality from her delirious world. She opened her eyes to see the worried face of Miran. How are you feeling? A bit more clear-headed now. Dr. Winston says, you've been too exhausted lately. What have you been doing? Karina listened with guilt, looking away, not wanting the Duke to know she had been using the power of miracles. She tried to deceive him by claiming she hadn't been sleeping well, but after spending so many days together, Miran was already quite familiar with Karina's little mannerisms. Karina, there's no need to lie to me because whenever you lie you roll your eyes and smile, so just rest well for these next few days. I'll personally take care of you, he said. Embarrassed at being caught in her lie, Karina covered her eyes. Marian, you don't need to be so kind to me. If you're too good to me, it will be heartbreaking when we part, so we should just be a little nice to each other, that's enough, she said, but Miran just asked her to rest. 3 days passed this way. Karina was finally allowed to get out of bed and walk. During these 3 days, Miran had stayed by her side, doing everything for her except going to the bathroom. This made Karina want to do something to repay him, so she immediately went to the unfinished painting. Although doing this would worsen her condition, but to help someone she cared for, what did that matter? Soon Karina completed the painting, then her beautiful eyes began to change color. The next moment, a foot larger than her entire body emerged from the painting. Karina was frightened and broke into a cold sweat. Wait, this isn't right. She hadn't expected the head of beast she created to be so enormous. The next second, everyone in the Duke's mansion felt a strong tremor. The Duke, worried about Karina, immediately rushed to her room, but when the Duke saw the monster Hattie in front of Karina, he carefully and nervously called for Karina to step aside while also preparing to strike it down. But Karina anxiously threw herself into the Duke's arms to stop him. This child was created by me. He hasn't harmed me. The Duke then noticed Karina's eyes had turned golden. Karina, did you use the power of miracles? Hearing this, Karina quickly covered her eyes. Sorry, you must hate this color, right? No, I think it suits you. But I know the art disease worsens each time you use miracles, don't you remember? So for your own good, let's deal with it quickly. But Karina hugged the monster Hetty, refusing to move aside. No, he's a child I created. He'll disappear on his own soon. Please don't hurt him. Seeing this, the Duke sighed helplessly. Then, let's take him outside. Miran asked Hattie, can you go outside? Surprisingly, the monster nodded, but his enormous body clearly couldn't maneuver in this small room. Everywhere he moved caused devastation. Karina watched anxiously, breaking into a sweat, quickly apologizing to the Duke and promising to make compensation. But Miran didn't care. He gently stroked Karina's head. These things are nothing compared to your health. Let's go outside and settle the monster first. Outside in the courtyard, Hattie wasn't as fierce as imagined. Instead, he was rather silly, trying to scare birds perched in trees. Miran couldn't help but curiously asked Karina, "Aren't you afraid of him? Look how nervous these battle-hardened knights behind me are, yet you seem so calm." Karina smiled gently. "Because he's a child I created, I can connect with him in spirit, and he's also the child in this world who understands my heart the most." But the Duke still had questions. "With so many monsters out there, why did you specifically choose Hetty?" Hearing this, Karina's face quickly flushed. "Because I wanted to help you find Hetty's weakness. But the Duke found this quite troubling. I never intended for you to help me. Your health is already so poor, there's no need to sacrifice yourself for others." "No, I'm not helping others, I'm helping you. I don't want you to get hurt when fighting monsters." After speaking, Karina nervously clutched her dress. "Miran, can you promise me something? If what I've done helps you in some way, then when we part, can you embrace me tightly just once?" At the end of her life, if Karina could take the warmth of another's body with her, then she can leave this world with a smile and no regrets. But Duke Miran remained silent, because he had already fallen deeply in love with Karina, so all along he had been unwilling to face the fact that Karina might leave someday. He finally agreed to Karina's request, but he also had his own condition. He asked Karina not to take such actions on her own initiative anymore, "Because I don't need your efforts in this way." But his statement caused Karina's heart to ache. She lowered her head and agreed, "If you dislike it, I won't do it anymore." The Duke knew Karina had misunderstood. He anxiously wanted to explain, but was interrupted by the sudden appearance of the butler. "Your Grace, Lord Carlos has arrived." The visiting Duke Carlos politely extended his hand to Karina, however the extended hand was grasped by Miran. "Don't think you can take advantage of Karina." He quietly began to exert force. "You think I'll just let you have your way? No chance." Thus a silent contest between men began. Finally, it was Karina who broke the deadlock. "Let's sit down and talk." Hearing this, both men disgustedly wiped their hands, but immediately got to the point. When Carlos heard that the monster Karina created still hadn't disappeared, he was very surprised, as Karina's abilities exceeded his expectations, and the concerned Miran couldn't help but ask the question that had puzzled him for a long time: what exactly did Karina's created miracles refer to? Carlos patiently explained to his good friend, "The miracle Karina creates is the rarest and most powerful among many miracles. For example, regardless of whether a certain creature exists in this world or not, as long as Karina can understand it, then she can create it exactly as it is. She could even create people." Karina and Miran were both shocked to hear this, realizing how powerful Karina's ability was, but they failed to notice Carlos's hesitation. Beside them, there was actually some more important information he hadn't disclosed. "Because God is fair, when you want to gain or possess something, you must pay an equal price. Therefore, those with this power rarely lived beyond 30. But for now he chose not to say this, and instead changed the subject. "Karina, I have something to give you. It's a letter your father, Duke Leopold, wrote for you." The neglectful father finally showed concern for the overlooked Karina. This time, he personally wrote a letter entrusting Duke Carlos to deliver it to Karina, but upon learning this, Karina felt as if she had plunged into an icy abyss. Her heart ached sharply. Those unhappy memories once again surfaced before her eyes as she sank deeper into despair. Duke Mirian's gentle hand caressed her sweaty forehead, pulling her back to reality from suffocating memories. "Karina, it's all right. You still have me. If you need, I'll throw this inconsiderate fellow out right now." Carlos was quite annoyed. "Is this how you treat a good friend?" But despite his complaints, Carlos still apologized for causing Karina discomfort. "I'm sorry, Karina. It seems I shouldn't have accepted this letter." Karina didn't blame Duke Carlos. On the contrary, having regained her composure, she now wanted to know what her biased father had written. After calming herself, Karina slowly opened the envelope. The first sentence was, unsurprisingly, the familiar accusation. "Karina, you're truly bold. Why didn't you directly express your dissatisfaction instead of running away from home, causing chaos for everyone? Abelia is also getting worse due to worrying about you. Why don't you, as the elder sister, know to care for your younger siblings? And have you considered how your actions bring negative impacts to our family? So if you don't want to be expelled from the family, come back quickly and stop embarrassing the family out there." After reading the letter, Karina let out a self-mocking laugh. What was she expecting? Compared to her safety, her father indeed valued the family's reputation more. "You always say that if there's any dissatisfaction it can be expressed directly, but when I spoke, which one of you ever listened seriously? Your eyes only see my fragile sister Abelia, but now isn't that child's condition better than mine, a dying person?" Completely disappointed, Karina rose despondently and walked straight to the nearby fireplace. Even in the end you refuse to believe I'm ill. I suppose if I were ill it would be troublesome for them, so the relationship between my father and me is completely severed after reading these words, father. After burning the letter, Karina turned back to comfort the shocked duo, but as soon as she opened her mouth, she felt a twisting pain in her heart. Has something happened to Hattie? Duke Miran rushed forward in one stride, supporting Karina, who was about to collapse, while the knowledgeable Carlos immediately recognized that something might have happened to Hattie, the monster Karina created. Hearing this, Karina, enduring severe pain, anxiously ran towards the courtyard. Outside, chaos had erupted. The previously calm and docile monster had become extremely agitated. Seeing this, Karina anxiously wanted to step forward to intervene, but was pulled back by Miran out of the concern. The monster is dangerous right now, don't go near it. Miran turned around and sternly asked the knights present what had happened. It turned out that not long ago 2 knights, seeing the usually bloodthirsty and frenzied monster Hetty, sitting calm and peaceful, became intensely curious. One knight even unsheathed his sword, hoping to find its weakness, but unexpectedly enraged the monster, leading to the current escalating situation. Upon hearing this, Duke Miran's face turned ashen. He had strictly warned them, yet his subordinates violated his orders, nearly causing harm to Karina. He apologetically turned to Karina, but Karina wasn't angry with the Duke at all, instead comforting him. Thus she had a solution. Hearing this, Miran felt mixed emotions and was about to speak when he was interrupted by Carlos, who was watching their affectionate exchange. Excuse me, you two, it seems you've forgotten there's a professional like me nearby. Once he had their attention, Duke Carlos set aside his carefree smile and seriously told Miran. That creature was created by Karina, so only Karina can calm it down. Don't worry, it won't harm her. Seeing his good friend so certain, Miran no longer objected. He quickly ordered everyone to stay away from monster, creating a quiet environment for Karina. After issuing these commands, the Duke, still concerned, lowered his head and whispered a few words in Karina's ear. Then, after instructing his men to remain quiet, he backed away. Karina then approached with a mix of trepidation and nervousness the large child she had created. She slowly extended her hand, softly comforting, "It's okay, child, don't be afraid." The previously agitated monster truly calmed down as Karina approached, and in Karina's mind, she recalled what Duke Miran had whispered in her ear. "Karina, with me, you don't need to restrain yourself. Do whatever you want, because no matter what happens, I will be by your side, protecting you." The art-loving Karina finally had a studio of her own. This was carefully prepared for her by Duke Miran. It's worth noting that Karina had never owned proper painting supplies in her own home. Her room, whether day or night, was always particularly dim, but now in her fiancé's home, after just 3 months of acquaintance, she had a luxurious, bright, exclusive studio. Karina was extremely fond of this unique gift. It was more precious than any gift she had ever received growing up. But while happy, she also felt a pang of sadness. Yet she wasn't sad for herself, but for the Duke. She knew her life was reaching its end. She couldn't accompany the Duke in the days ahead, so Karina, facing the Duke's affection, could only carefully avoid it. The Duke also noticed Karina's awkwardness, so he presented a fossil as a gift under the pretext of thanking her for helping identify Monster Hattie's weakness. But Karina still felt undeserving. After all, the monster Hetty she created had collided with many people and damaged furniture. Miran, facing such a conscientious Karina, was at a loss. He could only awkwardly turn his head aside, remaining silent. Karina chuckled. Seeing the Duke's reaction, she ceased teasing him. She turned and sincerely thanked the Duke. "I love this gift very much. Now I no longer need to worry about running out of paint, and I have a spacious, bright studio where I can paint any time. It's just a pity I can only stay here for half a year. As long as you're willing, you can stay here forever," Miran chimed in. But the more he spoke, the more Karina's heart ached. She painfully fidgeted with her fingers, wanting to tell the Duke the truth, but she didn't want his future days to be filled with pain. In the end, she chose to force a smile and turned around, thanking him for his kindness. Perhaps quietly departing would be the best choice for him and everyone else. After leaving Karina's room, Miran couldn't help but feel regretful, lamenting how quickly time had passed, while also feeling some frustration. Why had he only agreed to 1 year with Karina? Why hadn't he been more greedy? For Karina's sake, he devoted himself to help her recover her health sooner. When faced with teasing from his friend Duke Carlos, he no longer responded with his usual merciless retorts. Instead, he earnestly requested that his friend must cure Karina, because no one understood art disease better than him. Carlos, faced with the suddenly serious Miran, was momentarily taken aback, but looking at Marian's despondent figure, Carlos seemed to understand what's going on. Meanwhile, Karina was banging her head against the wall out of embarrassment. When she heard the Duke's words asking her to stay, she was actually very happy, but why did she say such hurtful words? Just as she was considering whether to find Miran to explain or not, Carlos arrived at her room. He wanted to talk with Karina about her condition. The initially somewhat pleased Karina, upon hearing this, felt a flash of panic. Had Dr. Winston told him about her condition, but she had just recently begged him not to tell anyone that she wouldn't live long. Once again, Karina felt that helpless sense of betrayal. Observing her reaction, Carlos quickly clarified. I was entrusted by Miran to help treat your heart disease. That's why I persistently questioned Dr. Winston. He didn't voluntarily tell me about your condition. Besides, I've known from the beginning that your heart disease is very severe, Miss Karina. Our Carlos family has kept ancient records about heart disease. We have been sponsoring artists since long ago. Among them were artists with miracle creation abilities like yours. However, Miss Karina, your ability is more powerful according to records. Created life forms rarely survive beyond a day, and there's no record of anyone granting life to giant monsters. So, Miss Karina, your ability theoretically could be considered close to a creator god's omnipotence. But Karina didn't seem surprised by these words. Instead, her expression turned melancholic. She had never thought her ability would be so powerful. Previously neglected by her family, she had always considered herself the most useless, not even ornamental. An ordinary lady. She asked Carlos, from what you know, did all these artists use their abilities at the cost of their lives? Yes, as far as I know, artists with these abilities all contracted heart disease, and they all died before turning 30. They say these artists focus solely on their paintings with no interest in life, and they would become increasingly obsessed with painting, eventually using their own flesh and blood as paint, unhesitatingly giving their lives for their artwork. So Karina, I want to help you. But to truly help you, you must not conceal anything from me, no matter how small. If you're experiencing any of the symptoms I'm about to describe, you must tell me honestly. From what I know, creators with heart disease not only become obsessed, but also grow increasingly sensitive as time passes. They paint without sleep or rest, as if hypnotized, because they believe their created life forms are the only beings who understand them, since they view these life forms as their everything. Hearing his explanation, Karina couldn't help but close her agape mouth. I have all the symptoms you mentioned. As time passes, I not only become more sensitive, but I also paint without sleep or rest. But I can't stop because in this world no one listens to my heart. Before coming here, no one ever cared about my feelings. Only the kids I create understand me. I was just so lonely. Karina, all I've said isn't to blame you. I want you to understand that constantly escaping will only hurt you in the end. If you continue to inject anger, sadness, and loneliness into your paintings, ignoring those who truly care for you, you'll surely regret it also. I heard from Dr. Winston that you have less than a year to live, is that right? Have you considered giving up painting? Carlos asked. I've never thought about giving up painting because painting is my entire life, she said, determined. Duke Carlos expressed understanding. He too had invested much in music. Since childhood, the joy of creation is not easily abandoned. By the way, Karina, there's something I'd like to ask of you. Carlos requested Karina to paint in front of him. He wanted to see what Karina looked like when using her ability. Faced with Carlos's request, Karina didn't refuse. After receiving her father's reproachful letter, she had responded with a letter severing their father-daughter relationship. Now she could paint a portal to send the letter back. Soon Karina prepared her painting supplies and began painting. As the brush moved across the paper, Duke Carlos' eyes widened, watching Karina's concentration and her fluid lines and unique painting style. He felt he wasn't simply observing the creation of a painting, but was immersed in the scene itself. After watching her work, he realized Karina's ability was truly amazing. He didn't know how to express the surging passion in his heart after watching her work. But Karina suddenly felt dizzy, a sign of her weak physical state and exhaustion, yet she still forced herself to complete the portal. Suddenly, a melodious flute sound came from nearby. It was Carlos. His flute possessed the ability to heal and restore energy. Hearing this pleasant flowing music, Karina immediately felt her breathing ease. Even her body seemed lighter, as the accompanied music provided her with much-needed strength. Karina's portal was successfully completed. Now she just needed to open this door to return to her former house. Just as Karina was about to thank Carlos for his help, she found him clutching his chest, looking at her. Karina, I think I've fallen in love with you, he exclaimed dramatically.